Have you ever asked yourself a question so raw, so terrifying in its simplicity, that your heart stops just thinking it? Here's one. What if your depression isn't an illness, but a message? What if it wasn't a flaw in your chemistry, but a signal from your soul? I want you to really sit with that before brushing it away. Because today you're going to see depression from a lens they never taught you in schools, never presented in your doctor's office, and buried deep under pharmaceutical talking points and Instagram mantras. This isn't just about serotonin. This is about silence that became unbearable, about identity fractured by unmet expectations, about ancient grief passed down through your family line. And at the end of this video, if you're still with me, you may not only understand your depression, you may finally feel something closer to hope. But consider this fair warning. Once you wake up to what's really causing your despair, you can't go back to sleepwalking through your life. We are not a society that listens. We are a society that diagnoses, pressures, distracts. Feeling down? Here's a pill. Here's a podcast. Here's a productivity hack. Smile more. Meditate more. Manifest harder. Hustle faster. Be more grateful. Do more yoga. Buy this, share that. Keep moving, keep scrolling. Never stop, never feel. But late at night when your defenses are down, when the screen goes dark, when the noise fades into the silence of your own heartbeat, something inside aches. Not just sadness, not just exhaustion, a kind of soul hunger. An ache that no self-help trick, no morning routine, no gym session, no staged vacation selfie can ever truly touch. And that's where it begins. The sinking sense that none of this is working. That you're living a life disconnected from something essential, something deep, and maybe even sacred. Carl Jung didn't see depression as a malfunction. He saw it as a visitation. He compared it to a woman in black. If she shows up at your door, Jung said, don't chase her away. Offer her a seat. Listen. She's come with news. This quote isn't poetic fluff. It's a revolutionary idea. That your darkness has depth. That your symptoms are symbols. That your suffering, Nickel, has something to say. Maybe you were never meant to suppress it. Maybe depression is not the thief. Maybe it's the trail of breadcrumbs that leads back to who you are beneath the performances, beneath the people-pleasing, beneath the praise, beneath the trauma. Let's be brutally honest. Our world is emotionally illiterate. Where we should have had safe spaces to grieve, to rage, to break apart, we were told to be strong. Where we needed nurturing, we got conditioning. Smile for grandma. Don't be a drama queen. You're too quiet. You talk too much. You're too sensitive. You'll grow out of it. And so your emotional life, the full, raging, brilliant spectrum of it, was boxed up, narrowed down, wrapped in shame. We label depression like it's a static condition, but far too often. It's the culmination of a life lived too far from the truth. Freud called it melancholia, a kind of mourning that isn't tied to a death but to a feeling of unseen loss. He believed that when someone or something we attach our love to disappoints us or disappears, we don't just let go. We turn the mourning inward. We self-punish. We call ourselves broken. We believe we deserved what happened. We equate worth with abandonment. We internalize rejection and call it identity. It's not that you failed to be happy. It's that the people and systems around you may have failed to love you in a way that saw your full humanity. And so your conscious brain, trained to move on, fights with your unconscious soul, which refuses to forget. That dissonance is depression. But where Freud focused on conflict, Alfred Adler focused on something else, a sense of inferiority. Adler believed that every psychological struggle at its core stems from a deeply embedded belief. I am not enough. Think about that. If you spend your life seeking validation, performing for approval, chasing love like a dog chasing a car, you're constantly reinforcing this lie. You can have the job, the partner, the body, the friends, but if deep down you feel like you're inherently lacking, All of it becomes a shiny distraction delaying inevitable emptiness. And when the distractions fade, you're left with what's always been there, a self fragmented by comparison. Have you ever found yourself obsessively checking your phone for notifications right after a small failure? Have you ever felt more alone after a party than before you went? It's not the absence of connection that causes depression. It's the absence of authenticity. Adler wasn't wrong when he claimed that most depression is an unconscious protest, a resistance to the life we're living because that life does not reflect our internal reality. So why do we still feel stuck? Why, in an age of positivity, of enlightenment memes and $1,000 retreats, do so many of us feel lonelier than ever? Because knowledge does not heal what your body still remembers. Knowing your trauma doesn't release it. Reading quotes about growth doesn't undo the scars you've been hiding since childhood. Knowing that you should be happy doesn't overrule an inner world that sees your entire life as meaningless. Depression is not about intellect. It's about the failure of meaning to take root. No one knew that better than Viktor Frankl. As a Holocaust survivor and the architect of logotherapy, Frankl developed a theory grounded in humanity's obsession with purpose. He wrote, "When a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure." Sound familiar? Millions of us are trying to replace meaning with mood. We chase dopamine instead of direction, thinking temporary highs can fill existential holes. But they can't. And the bigger the gap between your current life and your deep existential yearning, the louder the depression becomes. Frankl taught that humans can endure almost any pain if they can give it meaning. But in a world so superficial, so inundated with surface-level incentives and hollow values, many don't even know where to start. Have you ever felt like no matter how much you achieve, it's never enough? Or that you have everything you thought you wanted, but nothing feels real? Do you sometimes feel grief for things you can't name, or for the version of yourself that never had a chance to live? Why does nobody talk about this? Why do we drown our deepest questions beneath endless shallow solutions? Erich Fromm might have the answer. He believed the modern sickness isn't just individual, but cultural. That in our obsession with conquest, with profit, with competition, we have forgotten how to be fully human. Fromm argued that we shouldn't diagnose ourselves without also diagnosing our society. A society that replaces human connection with performance metrics. A culture that raises children to chase status instead of self-awareness. And so depression in this light becomes not a personal flaw, but evidence of a heart that still resists the counterfeit values it's been fed. Abraham Maslow said, "What a man can be, he must be." This is what he called self-actualization, the deep ache to fulfill your innate potential. In other words, your depression might not be a mental illness. It might be a spiritual call, a longing, a warning from the divine psyche that you are shrinking, settling, suffocating beneath expectations that were never yours. The longer you suppress that call, the louder the pain becomes. That dread you feel when you wake up every morning, that is your soul whispering, "This isn't it." So how do you bounce back? By understanding that the opposite of depression is not happiness. It's not productivity. It's integrity, wholeness, coming back into alignment with who you actually are beneath the masks. It starts with difficult but essential questions. Who am I when no one is watching? What does my soul long for that I've silenced? Who taught me that I had to be useful to be loved? What part of me had to die so I could feel safe in a world that demands smiles, not truths? Answering those questions doesn't fix everything, but it opens the door. Healing is not about erasing the scars. It's about giving them a voice. It's inviting them to the table and realizing they were never the enemy. This process is messy. It can feel like falling apart. But maybe falling apart was always the first step toward falling together. You lived in a world that rarely loved you for simply existing. A world that praised you for adapting, entertaining, achieving, but rarely for being real. To bounce back from depression is not to go back to that. It's to ruthlessly, courageously, unapologetically reclaim what you sacrificed. Your truth, your time, your inner world, your birthright to feel. So let this be your reminder. You are not broken. You are buried beneath shame, beneath roles, beneath years of self-betrayal. But you can dig. You can listen. You can rise. Not as who you were, but who you were always meant to become. If you've made it this far, I want to know who truly understood the message. Leave the phrase "silenced isn't soulless" in the comments, and let's see how many of you really grasp what it means to return to who you are beneath the pain. If this video made you question something, if it made you see things from a different angle, like and subscribe, because this is just the beginning. I'll see you in the next video. And remember, sometimes the soul must shatter so the truth can be reborn.